Even though there sometimes end up being memes, I still love free LC lords, in particular something like Tic-Tac-Toe, who's kind of interesting and unique, not necessarily insanely strong, but definitely can be very good if applied correctly. Here, Croissant is going to try and take Tic-Tac-Toe and some Ripperdactyls, some there and some here. Up against the Dwarfs, he's also got plenty of armor piercing via Feral Cold ones, and some red-crested skinks also throughout the back line. Looks like a Lore of Beasts Skink Priest and Skink Cohort, so it's an extra wide build here for the Lizardmen, and they're up against the Dwarfs, who I'm definitely, actually, low-key kind of excited to see what the Dwarfs get. With the Thrones of Decay DLC, who knows when we'll see any hide hair of that. When you guys are seeing this, most likely they will have probably released one of the blogs for the Shadows of Change update. I'm going to be out of town this week, so I probably won't end up making videos on those, but hopefully we see that update sooner rather than later, because I definitely want to get rolling with the new content and faction updates for some of these other older factions. But anyway, got some gyros here, a couple of cannons, thunderers in the back line, front line of miners, blastic charges. You have a couple slayers as well, protecting the cannons, very smart. Some dwarf warriors as well, although this slayer dragonback kind of moving off a little bit here. Don't know if the dwarf player actually spotted this immense backline. Oh, looks like they did, as the cannon switches direction over to shoot that way. Honestly, I'd probably just reposition these thunderers as well so they're facing this back direction, because even a little bit of fire will do a lot of damage to these Ripperdactyls. But also kind of smart to put these brimstone guns, well, not smart, but kind of get them away from the Ripperdactyls. But target-wise, I don't know, if you could actually come back and like try and focus fire and shoot some of the rippers, that'd be quite effective. But they are going to drop down here in the center. Blasting charges being thrown in the front line. Skinks duking it out with dwarves here in the deserts of Nahakara. Going to be a romping good time. This is actually somewhat campaign loreful, I guess, if you like actually Tic-Tac-Toe himself fighting against who is that? Orek Ironbrow's faction is in that area, kind of. I don't know. No Thorek here today, it's just a generic Dwarf Lord, so it certainly could be. But as the Lizardmen quickly collapse and start to deal some damage, Dwarfs are going to get blasted. A lot of their ranged units just absolutely getting crumbled immediately. That said, we've got Slayers doing just fine here. These Dragonback Slayers are also in this fight. Just wrecked one unit of Ripperdactyls, and also starting to carve through the Feral Cold ones, no problem. Like I said, Brimstones came back, start to countershoot some of these units that initially charged in. Doing some decent damage to Tic-Tac-Toe himself and the Ripperdactyls, although they're a little bit overstacked right now. I don't know if they're actually firing super efficiently. Some of their models might be blocked, but it'd be good to unstack them if possible. But still, got the Dread Column of Skinks moving in here, kind of bypassing these various melee fights, trying to get in this back line, make sure those missile units stay shut down. Tic-Tac-Toe, though, doesn't have a lot of HP. Will take damage pretty quickly, even though 20% physical resistance up in the air. Yeah, definitely helps shrug off some of that damage. 15% missiles, so 35% total mitigation on that. But still, I mean, it's anti-large shooting, quite effective, high damage. So, doesn't want to just be taking that to the face. Instead, he's going to try and chase the gyros, perhaps? No? Yep? Nope? I don't know. No idea what Tic-Tac-Toe's doing right now, but Micro's being prioritized elsewhere. As the Rippers kind of chase routing units around, coming back in for some rear charges here. Shut down these Dwarf Warriors as they fight hordes and hordes of Skinks. Just a nice quick break there. Moving on to other targets. You can see the Tic-Tac-Toe haven't taken so much damage. Not happy about the situation. The Rippers are finally going to turn their attention to the gyros. Gyros have no speed with which to escape this. I mean, they do have speed, but 105 speed versus only 90 speed actually for the Rippers. Even still, though, it will be tough to continuously micro them away. And they do fairly quickly get caught via those nice pursuit angles and shut down. Yeah, with gyros going down, that's going to put a pretty good dent in the balance of power. That was a significant amount of value. And the Dwarfs lacking any ranged units means they're going to struggle to output enough damage. If we check in on the Slayer situation here, we've still got one unit quite healthy over here. The Dragonbacks already get wiped? No, they're definitely not wiped. They still have plenty over here. So with those Slayer units' lives, Dwarfs definitely still have some chance, but they need to get together and try and form a little bit of a Doom Blob here with this Lord. That Flock of Doom we see cast there also from the Skink Priests of Beast. It's going to be super important to wear down those Slayers over time. Likewise, just the regular Skink cohorts, because they're so cheap and numerous, will actually trade very effectively, especially if they can get a surround on these Slayers. So Slayers drowning in Skink bodies might actually be enough to just ruin them, right? Like, these guys really need to be fighting the Rippers and other higher value targets rather than just the cheap Skinks. So you eventually do gotta kill them. And, you know, also finishing the Skink Priest with the Lord would help, getting rid of that Flock of Doom. But still looking pretty grim right now, especially as these Dragonback Slayers kind of chase the Feral Cold Ones off from the boonies a little bit. Dwarfs definitely are a faction that needs to stay tight, needs to stay in formation and stay in support range just because of their slow nature, right? So when you get spread out like this, it just becomes really tough to try and get any kind of cohesive, you know, grouping or push together. Lizardmen able to just continuously pile in with massive numbers. I mean, they started out at a pretty big numbers advantage and currently are like 3-1, more than 3-1, so it's tough when you're a dwarf in that position. Let's see here. Looks like it's going to be just the Dwarf Lord left at this point, so we can probably fast forward to this late game. Lizardmen doing a great job cleaning up routing units wherever they can. That Dwarf Lord certainly will be a tough nut to crack. You can see he's taking very little damage, but army losses, of course, can deal with him just fine. And all that's left is just the Dragonback Slayers, although they are dishing out some damage. Managed to rip apart one Dactyl unit. Any large unit that runs in here is just going to get absolutely murked. But eventually, you know, all at once, with the Flock of Doom, they can get in here and with just massively superior numbers, smash those Dragonback Slayers. Dwarf player here fighting it to the bitter end. Respect to the Slayers, helping them fulfill their oath. And that's it. I mean, yeah, it was ended up being quite effective. Definitely a little bit too much range reliance from the Dwarves here. I mean, this is one matchup where it can be tough to predict. You know, Lizardmen won't always do something like this, but the threat of Rippers is big enough that I'd try and limit your ranged units to a degree and maybe just take more melee Slayers, because, I mean, the Slayers can kill dinos in melee, no problem. But I would probably take like 4 Slayers here, maybe option 1 into a Giant Slayer, possibly, if you have the funds. And then just take more screening tools, perhaps, for them. I don't totally hate the pick of the Gyros, even though they didn't end up totally paying for themselves. Like, I might maintain some missile presence on the ground here, and in the skies, obviously, as well. But just in general, bringing more Slayers into the mix would help you give some extra anti-large, anti-monster tools without having to sacrifice micro in protecting them, and also can contribute in melee, you know, that require less micro for protection. So, interesting one for sure. Love the pick of the Rippers, and they ended up being super effective here. Tic-tac-toe, not so much, but definitely as style points and as a relatively cheap kind of support lord for this type of a build, ended up being very effective. The rest of the build just does a good job kind of supporting the Rippers. I mean, they're the main kind of damage dealer piece in this army, but Skin cohort with 500 value, that's pretty nice to see there. It must have chased down like a cannon crew or something. But very fun stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.